The hidden letter. The morning sun rose quietly over the small countryside estate, stretching its warm golden light across the misty hills that once echoed with laughter, family gatherings, and the steady hum of a simpler life. But now that same house, Grandpa's old manor, stood in heavy silence. The air was thick with tension, with whispers of inheritance, with the lingering scent of old wood and memories no one could seem to agree on. Grandpa Thomas had passed away 2 weeks earlier. For many in the town, he had been a man of integrity and quiet wisdom, a farmer, a storyteller, and a man who built everything with his bare hands. For his grandsons, however, his death had opened the door to something darker: greed, jealousy, and a battle for what he left behind. There were 2 brothers, David and Mark. Both had grown up under Grandpa Thomas's watchful eye, but the paths they walked couldn't have been more different. David, the younger one, had stayed close to his grandfather, helping on the farm, running errands, taking care of him when age caught up with the once strong man. Mark, the elder brother, had left years ago for the city, chasing wealth and recognition, building a life that sparkled on the surface but was hollow inside. When the news of Grandpa's death reached him, Mark returned home, not out of love or grief, but calculation. Rumors had always surrounded the estate. People whispered that Thomas had left behind more than a farm, something valuable, something hidden. And Mark wanted it all. From the moment he stepped into the house, Mark's eyes scanned everything: the furniture, the drawers, the walls, as if the walls themselves might hide the fortune he sought. He spoke of honoring Grandpa's memory, but his actions betrayed him. He demanded documents, searched through cupboards, and questioned neighbors. David, patient and quiet, simply watched, keeping to himself. He had no desire for wealth, only respect for the man who had given him everything he knew. When the lawyer finally arrived for the reading of the will, the family gathered in the parlor where dust motes danced in the shafts of afternoon light. Mark leaned back confidently in his chair, certain that he would be the primary heir. After all, he was the eldest. He had the name, the charm, and the confidence of someone who had always gotten what he wanted. The lawyer cleared his throat, opened the envelope, and began to read. The first few lines were simple: expressions of gratitude, love, and a final farewell. Then came the division of assets. The land, the house, the machinery, the savings, everything as Mark expected. But when the lawyer reached the last page, his tone shifted. There was mention of a sealed letter hidden within the house, to be opened only after both brothers had agreed to a final condition: to spend 1 full week together on the farm, working side by side as they once did as children. Mark was furious. He claimed it was unnecessary, that the will should be read in full without childish games. But the lawyer shook his head gently. "Your grandfather was very clear," he said. "The letter determines the true inheritance. Without completing his condition, the will remains incomplete." David said nothing. He simply nodded. He understood. Grandpa had always believed in lessons, not just legacies. So reluctantly, Mark stayed. The first few days were unbearable. Mark complained about the early mornings, the manual labor, the quiet nights without internet or noise. David carried the weight silently, repairing fences, tending to animals, and keeping the place alive. Slowly, the old house seemed to breathe again, as if recognizing the rhythm of its past. Yet beneath the calm surface, tension brewed. Mark's greed grew with each passing day. He began to suspect that David already knew where the letter was. He watched him closely, followed him around the property, and searched his belongings when he wasn't looking. The once beautiful bond of brotherhood had turned into quiet hostility. One night after a storm, Mark wandered into the barn, driven by frustration. The rain pounded on the roof, lightning flashed across the fields, and for a brief second he saw something glinting in the hayloft above. He climbed up, heart racing, only to find an old rusted box, one that looked as if it hadn't been touched for years. He forced it open, hoping for gold, cash, or a deed that would secure everything for himself. But inside was only a single folded note in Grandpa's handwriting. His pulse quickened. Perhaps this was it, the secret letter, the key to the estate. Without hesitation, he opened it, but his excitement faded as he read the words. It wasn't the final letter, only a small note. Greed blinds the heart before it blinds the eyes. Look beyond what shines, my boy. Furious, Mark threw the note aside. Yet something about the words lingered in his mind long after the storm passed. The week went on. David noticed Mark's restlessness but said nothing. He spent his days in quiet reflection, remembering Grandpa's lessons, the way he used to say that wealth wasn't measured in gold, but in peace. On the seventh day, when the week had finally come to an end, both brothers sat on the porch at dusk staring at the horizon. The lawyer arrived once more, carrying another envelope. "You've done as he asked," he said. "Now, the last letter may be revealed." David watched as the lawyer handed the sealed envelope to Mark. His brother's hands trembled slightly, though whether from anticipation or guilt, no one could tell. Mark tore it open and began to read silently. His face went pale. The letter was written in Grandpa's careful script, every word deliberate, every sentence a mirror held up to the soul. "My dear grandsons," it began, "if you are reading this, then you have fulfilled the one thing I wanted most, to be together once more. You both are my pride, yet I know life took you down different paths. I have watched one of you chase the world's riches, and the other live a life of humble truth. But I could not let my legacy become the seed of your destruction." The letter went on to explain that the estate, the land, the house and everything on it, would belong not to one brother, but to both equally. However, there was one condition. The property could not be sold, divided, or leased for profit. It was to be used as a community shelter, a place for children in need, as Grandpa once dreamed of creating. Only if both brothers worked together to make that dream a reality would they inherit the remainder of his fortune, stored safely in a trust fund. If they refused, the entire estate would be donated to charity. Mark's heart sank. This was not what he wanted. He had come for wealth, not responsibility. His mind raced with anger, disbelief, and regret. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the layers of pride, something cracked. The words echoed again. Greed blinds the heart before it blinds the eyes. David, on the other hand, smiled faintly. He looked at the land around them, the fields glowing in the fading light, the wind whispering through the trees, and felt peace. This was Grandpa's final lesson, not about inheritance, but about legacy, love, and redemption. Over the following months, the transformation began. Mark resisted at first, still hoping to find a loophole. But as the days turned into weeks and he saw the children running through the fields, their laughter echoing through the valley, something within him began to change. The greed that had once ruled him slowly faded, replaced by a quiet understanding of what his grandfather had truly left behind. David and Mark rebuilt the house together. They turned the barn into a workshop, the garden into a playground, and the living room into a study hall for children. They worked side by side, just as Grandpa had wanted. In time, Mark stopped looking for gold and started planting seeds instead. He stopped counting money and started counting smiles. The secret will had not given him what he wanted, but it had given him what he needed. And in the attic, long after the renovations were complete, David found something hidden beneath an old wooden floorboard. A second note, sealed and untouched. It was addressed to the one who stayed true. He didn't open it right away. He just sat there, holding it close, knowing that whatever it contained wasn't meant for wealth or gain, but for the soul. The wind rustled through the open window, carrying with it the scent of the fields and the faint echo of Grandpa's voice. Gentle and wise. "Family," it seemed to whisper. That was always the real inheritance. And as night fell over the old manor, a sense of peace finally returned. The two brothers, once divided by greed, were now bound by the legacy of love. The estate, once a symbol of wealth, had become a symbol of hope. But in that attic, where the shadows danced and memories lingered, the unopened letter waited. Its secrets still untouched, its truth yet to unfold.